48, this is BBC Radio Kent. Good morning. All this week we're hearing from the photographers behind images in a beautiful exhibition showcasing life in lovely Whitstable. Local residents have contributed photographs they took of the town during 2013. So there are 365 images, clearly one for each day of the year. The scheme is just called Project 365 and it's opened at Whitstable Museum and Gallery. Now, today's photograph you can see on our website. I'd love you to go and have a look. There's all sorts of likes already for it. Not on our website, I beg your pardon, on our Facebook page. So go to Facebook and search for BBC Radio Kent Official, and you'll find a photograph that features a beautiful old brick wall, an old boat, a dog, and an old lady's coat. You have to see it to understand how it all works together. Today's photographer is Triona Holden. Triona is a former BBC TV journalist who has retrained as an artist. Triona, first of all, congratulations on the photograph, which I love. Were you very pleased with it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's in Whitstable. There are so many incidents like that where it just catches your eye, and you have a nanosecond to record it, and it's really quite fascinating how that works, that you, as an artist, you see the world as sort of light and colour, so it's shade and dark. But then when you start working as a photographer or thinking like a photographer, you start to see images, you start to see people and animals in a different way.
The dog just looks so knowing somehow. He's just sat there. I can't tell. Is he sat within a tyre or something? What's around him?
I think it's a tyre that's in there with it, and it's actually all been planted up now, that boat, for Whitstable in bloom.
I like it as it is, actually.
Yeah.
I like it sort of just looking all beaten up. So there's the dog inside the tyre inside the boat, which is a very old boat on a sort of, it looks like it's a grass verge, and the brick wall behind it of some sort of building, and then the mast of the boat, which is just a rotting piece of wood, and bizarrely what looks like, I can imagine it hanging up outside a kind of second-hand shop, and the sort of coat that my grandma would have worn is hanging from the mast.
Well, actually it's just near Keames Yard, which is an art centre, so Keames Art Centre there on the front, near the Royal Oyster Fisheries, and there is a lady who sells second-hand vintage clothes, and it was one of her pieces that was hanging there, so you've absolutely got it spot on.
Has it got a little price tag on it? I can see there's a little white mark, and I'm wondering if that's the price tag on the old vintage lady's coat.
Oh, I tried not to look. It's probably a tenner.
This is the sort of thing they go for in Whitstable.
Yeah.
A lovely photograph. What do you make of the exhibition? Why did you want to be a part of it, Triona?
Oh, I think it's a wonderful community initiative. I think Natalie Benagues and her team are remarkable, and I saw it in Faversham. I went along and I bought the book, and I just thought, what a great idea, because it takes you into your community. You've actually got all these photographers. I've met so many wonderful people. I can't tell you, it's incredible. And I'm not really a photographer, I'm rubbish compared to most of the people, so I'm amazed that I got in the book at all, to be honest.
Well, let's trace your career, because once upon a time you worked for the BBC in really illustrious positions. You presented the Today programme on Radio 4, You've been on the 6 o'clock news, you travelled to war zones, you've covered famines for the BBC, so your early career was not about art at all. How long did you work in television journalism?
I was a journalist for 20 years, and I was in telly for about 8, I think it was, and then I became ill with lupus, which I don't know if you know, but it's an autoimmune disease. Which predominantly affects women. 9 out of 10 patients are women, and it almost killed me a couple of times. I still have it. So I was, unfortunately, my hopping on and off on planes days and sitting in front of the telly going blah, 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 disappeared, and I discovered an ability with art, just amazingly, and I'd never, from the age of 17, I'd been working as a journalist, so I'm in my 30s, and suddenly my life's come to a standing halt, and I have to find another way of existing, really, and I did, and I'm so lucky. I retrained at Chelsea College of Fine Art, got a degree, and now I have a studio here in Whitstable called The Flying Pig, which people are welcome to come and have a look at my work. I don't really sell to the public, but I do commissions.
So how did you work out, having had a completely different career? I don't know, maybe you were great at art at school and it was something you went back to, or was it a complete revelation to you that you had the makings of an artist?
That was a complete revelation. I had not a clue. I'd be one of those people, and I'm sure your listeners will be many amongst them, who say, "Oh, I can't draw anything. I couldn't even draw a tree or a stick man." I was one of those, and I'd never even thought about it because I'd always been racing around and working. You know what it's like when you're broadcasting. You never have a minute to think, and at the end of the day, you're so tired you just collapse in a heap. So there isn't anything extra to give. And suddenly, I'm actually stuck being very ill. My brain's working and ticking away, and my hands are able. And it was while I was in hospital, I was playing with my daughter's watercolours, and I started painting some of the huge amounts of flowers I got from the lovely BBC Newsroom crew. And it just started from there, really. All the nurses were going, "Whoa, this is amazing." And I thought, oh, hello, this is interesting. And it began, and then I'm slightly more modern in the way I paint. I don't paint reality in that way. I sort of I use a lot of old materials, and at the moment I work a lot on old headlines. I've gone back into text, which is fascinating me at the moment, and old toys that are all broken.
Your work's been displayed in some pretty extraordinary places, hasn't it?
Yeah. I had a show in Manhattan and in Auckland, and then I actually showed in Tate Modern, but only for a day. I have to say that's only for a day.
But nonetheless, I mean, those are the sorts of things that many artists would dream about. Is Whitstable a good place for an artist? I'm wondering what took you to Whitstable.
I've always had a love for Whitstable. 20 years. I mean, lots of journalist friends have always loved Whitstable, and I was introduced to Wheelers through journalists about 20 years ago, and on the old News of the World, a lot of them used to live down here, and they were friends of mine, and so I came down to Whitstable, and I just, like so many people, fell in love with it, and kept contact with it. But it's such a creative place, and they're so supportive, the people here. I find, because I open my door, people come in, and my fellow artists are wonderful, because it's quite a lonely profession, unlike, say, what you do or what I used to do. You're always talking to people, and you've got that interaction in the newsroom or with your team there, producers. I had nothing as an artist. You're just completely alone. But people come in and chat to you, and they share their stories, and I've got to know a lot of them, and I'm part of Kent Creative Arts, which is another group that gathers. In fact, we're gathering next week. So it's a wonderful place to be an artist. There are lots of us, there are tons of artists in Whitstable, so you're actually never alone as an artist in Whitstable, which is rather nice.
Triona, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time this morning. If you'd like to have a look at Triona Holden's photograph that's part of Project 365, the dog, the boat, the coat and the brick wall, then I suggest it's not what it's called. Actually, does it have a title, Triona?
Dog in a boat.
Dog in a boat. Okay, brilliant. Lovely to talk to you, Triona Holden. You can go to our Facebook page and search, go to Facebook and search for BBC Radio Kent Official. It's an absolute gem. And the Flying Pig, that's where you can see her art as well in the town of Whitstable. This is BBC Radio Kent. Thanks for your company.